The chains didn't disappear. They just got a direct deposit function. You wake up Monday morning with a knot in your stomach. Not because you hate your job, because you need it. Because without their paycheck in 14 days, the rent doesn't get paid, the car gets repossessed, the phone gets shut off, and you already know what's in your account right now. Close to nothing. Again, like it always is by the second week, you make more money than your grandparents ever dreamed of, but somehow you're more trapped than they were. This isn't an accident. Your salary was engineered centuries ago to do exactly what it's doing right now. Keep you producing. Keep you obedient. Keep you exactly one missed payment away from disaster. Let me take you back to where this specific trap was born. 1400 years ago, a landowner in feudal Europe faced a problem. He owned everything, the land, the mills, the woods, but he couldn't work it all himself. He needed bodies, lots of them. But if he paid those bodies too much, they'd save money, buy their own land, and leave. If he paid them too little, they'd starve and die, and he'd have no workers at all. So he invented something brilliant, something evil, the subsistence wage. He calculated the exact minimum amount of food, shelter, and resources a human being needed to survive and work another day. Not thrive, survive. He gave them just enough to wake up tomorrow and do it again. Just enough so they couldn't leave. This was the birth of the salary, a scientifically calculated leash. The peasants were given grain, a small plot to sleep on, maybe some cloth once a year, and in exchange they worked his fields from sunrise until their backs gave out. They called it providence, they called it the natural order. But here's what it really was. It was the minimum required investment to extract maximum labor. The math was cold, the design was perfect. Then the world changed. 1873, the factories rise, black smoke pours into the sky over Manchester, over Pittsburgh, over Berlin. Peasants flood into the cities thinking they're escaping the fields, thinking they're finally free. They're not. They've just traded one master for another. The factory owner looks at his workers the same way that feudal lord looked at his serfs. How little can I pay them and still keep them alive? How much can I extract before they break? The Industrial Revolution didn't liberate the worker. It mechanized the cage. Stage 1 arrives quietly. It's called the promise. You're told that if you work hard, if you show up on time, if you sacrifice your youth inside these walls, you'll be rewarded. You'll climb the ladder. You'll own a home. You'll retire in peace. The promise is everything. It's why you take the job. It's why you accept the number they offer you. It feels like opportunity. It's actually the bait. Stage 2 is the adjustment. You get your first paycheck and you're excited. Then you see the deductions. Federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare, health insurance, retirement contributions you can't touch for 40 years. What you thought you were making and what hits your account are two very different numbers. But you adjust. You tell yourself, this is normal. Everyone does this. You budget around the smaller number. You forget you ever expected more. Stage 3 is the trapdoor. You sign a lease. You finance a car. You open a credit card for emergencies. Each signature is a new lock. Because now your salary isn't just feeding you. It's feeding the bank, the landlord, the loan company, the insurance company. And suddenly that number that felt tight but manageable is now suffocating. You're not saving anymore. You're juggling, deciding which bill can wait, which one can't. You're working full time, but living paycheck to paycheck. And here's the most vicious part. You can't quit. Because if you stop, everything collapses. This is where the system turns deadly. Stage 4 is the escalator. Your rent goes up. Your car insurance goes up. Groceries cost more. Gas costs more. Everything rises except the one number that matters. Your paycheck barely moves. Maybe you get a raise, 3%. Congratulations. Inflation was 7%. You just went backwards. And your boss knows it. The system knows it. Because wage stagnation isn't a failure of capitalism. It's a feature. If your salary kept pace with productivity, with corporate profits, with the cost of living, you'd eventually have enough to leave. To start your own business. To stop depending on them. They can't let that happen. The numbers prove it. In 1973, the average worker could buy a house with 3 years of salary. In 2024, that same house cost 9 years of salary. But your salary didn't triple. It didn't even double when adjusted for inflation. The value of your labor has been systematically drained for 5 decades. And it wasn't an accident. It was policy. It was strategy. Suppress the wage. Inflate the cost. Keep the worker running on the wheel. But here's the part they don't teach you in school. Stage 5 is the illusion of mobility. They give you a title, junior associate, senior analyst, team lead. It costs them nothing. But it makes you feel like you're climbing. You're not. You're still trapped in the same salary band, still living month to month, still one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. The title is a psychological wage. It keeps you motivated without them actually having to pay you more. You work harder for the same money because now you have something to put on LinkedIn. This is the most elegant part of the design. They convinced you that progress is a better job title, not a better life. Stage 6 is the exhaustion. You're 37 years old. You've been working for 15 years. You've done everything right. You went to college. You got the job. You showed up every day and you have nothing. No savings, no property, no security, just debt and fatigue. You look at your parents and you don't understand. They had a house by 30. One income supported a family. Retirement was real. What happened? What happened is the salary was redesigned. It used to be a pathway to ownership. Now it's a subscription to survival. You're renting your own life. Right now, in 2025, 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck. Not just minimum wage workers. Engineers, teachers, nurses, people making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. The trap doesn't care about your degree. It doesn't care how hard you work, because the salary was never designed to free you. It was designed to keep you productive until you're used up. This is not a conspiracy. This is a business model. Let me show you the math they hope you never calculate. The average American will work 80,000 hours in their lifetime. 40 years, 50 weeks a year, 40 hours a week, 80,000 hours of your life traded for a salary. Now take your current salary and divide it by the hours you actually work, including the overtime you don't get paid for, the emails you answer at night, the work you take home. What's your real hourly rate? Now subtract your commute, your work clothes, your lunch, your childcare, so you can go to work. What's left? For most people, it's less than they think. Sometimes, shockingly, less. You're not building wealth, you're treading water in expensive shoes. The corporations know this. In 2023, corporate profits hit record highs. CEO compensation rose 19%. Worker wages rose 4%. The gap isn't closing. It's widening by design, because every dollar they don't pay you is a dollar they keep. And they've spent 50 years lobbying to make sure wages stay low, fighting unions, fighting minimum wage increases, fighting mandatory benefits. Not because they can't afford it, because the model requires your desperation. A desperate worker is a compliant worker. A desperate worker doesn't ask questions, doesn't demand more, doesn't leave. Once you sign that employment contract, the clock starts ticking against you. Your salary is a cage made of direct deposits. It feels like security because it's predictable, but predictability isn't safety. It's control. They can predict your behavior because they control your resources. They know you'll stay late, you'll skip lunch, you'll say yes to the extra project because you need next month's payment. The salary is the collar. The bills are the leash. And here's the cruelest twist. You were taught to be grateful for it. Grateful for the job. Grateful for the steady paycheck. Grateful that someone is willing to pay you at all. That gratitude is the final lock on the cage. Because grateful people don't rebel. They don't demand. They don't walk away. The system didn't just trap your body, it trapped your mind. But the cage only works if you don't see the bars. Everything I just told you has been true for 800 years. The amounts changed, the currency changed, the titles changed, but the mechanism is identical. Calculate the minimum to keep them alive. Pay exactly that. No more. Extract their labor. Repeat until they're too old to be useful. This was the feudal contract. This was the factory wage. This is your salary, same trap, different wrapping paper. The only difference between a medieval serf and a modern employee is the serf knew he was a serf. You were told you're free. You're not. You're free to choose which corporation extracts your life, but you're not free to opt out. Because rent is due, insurance is due, debt is due, and the salary is the only thing standing between you and the street. That's not freedom. That's compliance with extra steps. So what do? You can't just quit. The system is built to make quitting catastrophic. But you can start by seeing it, by understanding that your salary is not a gift. It's not a fair exchange. It's a calculated tool of control. Once you see it, you can start making different choices, smaller, strategic choices, reducing dependency, building alternative income, learning skills they can't monetize, slowly loosening the leash. The system survives on your ignorance. It collapses under your awareness. If this opened your eyes to the cage you're living in, subscribe. Because in the next video, we dismantle the rest of the illusion. The salary has one more feature they never explain to you. It's called the golden handcuffs, and it's how they keep their best prisoners from escaping. You've been at the company for 5 years. You're good at what you do. You're tired, burned out, but you're good. Then they offer you a raise, 10%. Maybe 15%. If you're valuable enough, you feel seen, appreciated, you take it. What you don't realize is they just made you more expensive to yourself. Because now your bills will adjust to match that new number. The nicer apartment, the better car, the lifestyle inflation they predicted you'd embrace. And when you think about leaving a year later, you can't. Because taking another job at your old salary feels like going backwards. They've priced you into dependency at a higher level. But here's what's really happening behind that raise. Your productivity increased 20%. The revenue you generate increased 30%, but your salary only increased 10%. They're still extracting more value than they're returning. The raise isn't a reward, it's a recalibration. They're paying you just enough more to keep you from walking, but not enough to actually change your position in the cage. And the 2-week pay cycle, that's not random. It's engineered. They could pay you weekly, they could pay you daily, but 2 weeks creates a specific psychological rhythm. By day 10, you're usually running low. By day 13, you're counting hours until Friday. You're never comfortable enough to take risks, never secure enough to make bold moves. You're always exactly close enough to the next paycheck that quitting feels impossible. This is intentional. The 2-week cycle keeps you in a state of managed scarcity. Just enough to survive, never enough to escape. Look at the benefits package they're so proud of. Health insurance that doesn't kick in for 90 days. A 401k match that vests over 4 years. Vacation days you need permission to use. Stock options that mature in 5 years. Every single benefit is designed with a timer, a lock-in period. They're not investing in you, they're building exit costs. The longer you stay, the more you have to lose by leaving. That's not generosity, that's architecture. They're constructing your prison cell with dental coverage and casual Fridays. The salary was never meant to build your future, it was meant to fund theirs.